the global need on not on disability, but on differently abled superhumans. As the founding father of United States once said, Benjamin Franklin, out of adversity comes opportunity. And let me begin with a very, very short story here. March of 2008, one of the biggest banks, Bear Stearns, went under, followed by one of the biggest financial catastrophes in the history of this planet, financial meltdown. Two boys, one son of a social worker and one an immigrant, they couldn't find a job. They had a house and they couldn't pay the rent. They tried finding job, but the situation was so bad 12 years back in 2008 that there weren't any jobs. Brian Chesky, Joe Gabbia, they came out with an idea. Can we rent an outsider or small place inside our house? That idea came out of necessity, and they realized that it is not only my problem, it is your problem, and it is everyone's problem that day. And thus the emergence of Airbnb happened. My problem, your problem, everyone's problem. Let's find a solution. And today that Airbnb is valued at $31 billion. Similarly, 12 years back, something else also happened in India. A dentist from a middle-class family lost his vision. Because of loss of vision, he started thinking, there is no future for my life. And then something happened. Something happened. When his sight went, his vision came. He started thinking of millions around the country, around the world who couldn't see. And thus he started Sarthak 12 years back. With very humble beginnings, today Sarthak is present with 19 centers, have employed almost 20,000 differently abled, and have made these households independent, self-reliant, and sustained without any financial aid. Today we are going to talk many such stories who have not only survived during tough times, who have not only thrived during tough times, but have progressed when adversity has hit. So let me call Dr. Jitendra Agrawal, the founder, the architect of disability movement in India. Dr. Jitendra Agrawal, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Siddhartha ji. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you and welcome to all of you from India. Welcome to all of you from all persons with disability organizations India working for people with disability. So I'd like to welcome again my friend Alfonso from European Social Network, Marcy from World Institute of Disability, then Tolu from Nigeria, then we have Padam from Nepal, and we have Umaji from UNESCO, and Rahul, our friend from Mumbai Axis Bank, and our national president, Olympic president, Krishan Kalra sir, Suresh ji, and dear friend again, Siddhartha ji. So I like to welcome all of you. I think all of us are in a challenging phase because of COVID, but what we feel that whenever there is any adversity, there is an opportunity. And we at Sarthak in India are thinking about that opportunity for people with disability, and we are working on that front. I think we went in India for lockdown on 21st March to 27th of March, we were in struggle. how to do health programs for people with disability, education, skilling, vocational training, and we came out with solution in a week that how we can do now. So that there is an entire change, like organization who was there delivering programs in physical mode went to digital mode. Like when we were used to do early intervention program for children with special need, we were doing early intervention program digitally, like children from 0 to 6 or 7 years of age who used to come to our centers. We trained parents online therapy program, and they are comfortably doing that such program through online. And around 350 such children has been properly rehabilitated during COVID era. Second program that we used to run vocational training for people with disability, as mentioned by Siddhartha, we were running around 21 center all across India, and we for a week we were closed down, but then we realized why don't we do have digital platforms and where we can train people with disability digitally through Google Meet or through Zoom or platforms, and we were live after 1 week. So in last 6 months, 2,500. These are all with all disability, physical, hearing impaired, visually impaired, and intellectual disability has been trained. And now what we are realizing that this digital digital platform has created like physical barriers for us. Like we are able to serve people with disability in the in rural part of India also. And that is, I think now we are realizing that we through digital platforms can empower each person with disability in India. I think the third program that we used to rest employability of people with disability, where we started in 2008, when in India not a single employer was there, and where Sarthak was born. Now we have 1,000 employers for people with disability, but in COVID, it was a challenge for employers also, but with God grace, now 800 of our people with disability are successfully employed in work from home model. And now it's picking up, like corporates has analyzed that if this workforce is more retainable, more outcome oriented, and lot of corporate houses are joining us in India. And these are all multinational like Capgemini or Wipro or maybe Microsoft or Accenture. So they are coming up and hiring people with disability during COVID era. I think the fourth program, Olympics, we were preparing for 2021 Moscow Olympics. Our candidates, we invited them in New Delhi for training program, and we went for lockdown. So we started their online training program. So all the skills like either painting or embroidery or computer programming, all the experts are training our champions who are going to travel to Russia online. And it's a wonderful thing that we realize that each and every training we can do digitally, and there is same outcome that we have during physical interaction. So this Olympic program is also live. In last 6 months that we have created a platform of NGOs, because in India we have more than 10,000 NGOs working in this space. So we have created a platform called National Disability Empowerment Alliance. A group of 170 NGOs all across India has joined this platform, and now we are going to work on their capacities, because we realize that they are there in their local geography from years and years, 20, 30 years, but struggling with resources. So why don't empower them, give them resources, give them financial independence, give them funding, and give them capacity building of their human resource. So we are working aggressively on that part to empower people with disability through our NGO partners. So what we did other than our programs during COVID, that I think in India, all of you must be seeing that numbers are near about 95,000, 90,000 every day, and it's increasing in most of the states. But with God grace, fatality is very low in India, only 1.5%, and that is a good sign for us. But still, our health workers, our medical workers needs to be give proper, like, so we used to give, with different foundation support, we provided PPE kits, masks, and sanitizers to our medical social workers in different states. We realized that our people with disability, small children who were there in residential homes, they were struggling with food. So with different foundations, we provided food to intellectual disability children who were there in residential facilities for last 6 months. In India, we did a survey that during COVID, 20% of our disabled children lost the job because it's a challenging time for non-disabled also. But we are working on that front. And what we did with corporate houses in India, that we took old laptops from the corporate houses and provided to our people with disability so that they can took training program online for us and can have work from home model employability also. And in the end, I like to urge all our international partners to join hand with us. Like we are part of European Social Network now. We will be soon part of WID also, and other CBM and other partners also will join. But my request to all of you will be to share their best practices. Like Sarthak is pioneer in creating employability in corporate sector in India, because before 2008 it was struggling time for people with disability. So through efforts of Sarthak, now around 20,000 people with disability has been successfully employed, and we are ready to share whatever we have achieved with you, and we want to learn from you also. Secondly, we can have exchange program for human resource, like maybe your trainer can come visit India and our trainers can visit your country also to learn your best practices. Thirdly, we can do combined research part, because in disability, lot of research and innovation is required. So we can have a special research on technology or innovations combinedly we can do. And that is very important for people with disability, because right now in some area, there is no research available for people with disability, and we'll be happy to do joint research with all our partners that we have. And fourthly, that currently we are coming up with a global resource center. It will be one first in India, and we want to learn from all of you, your technology innovations that you have done, so that we can bring the technology or innovation to that global resource center that we are going to create in New Delhi, the capital of India. Fifth, that we did a program with the Tolu, that is Career Edu in Nigeria. They were struggling with early intervention program, with skilling program. So our team is directly capacity building their trainers in Nigeria through online. So we'll be happy to support NGOs, smaller NGOs in other part of world also. So whatever we have learned, because we have a structured digital platform now, we have knowledge bank, we have MIS, and we have mobile app. So and we are coming up with the global ELMS for people with disability. So we are very much interested, very much we will be happy to partner with all of you, so that we can empower each persons with disability in this world. So thank you very much again to all of you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Agrawal. This is wonderful. Somebody said that Rome isn't built in a day, but the progress which Sarthak has made during the 6 months of pandemic is nothing but exceptional. 800 job placements, 2,500 trainees, learning management system, mobile app for learners, outreach not only to all states but international geographies as well. As Albert Einstein said, adversity introduces man to himself, and under your able leadership, I can clearly see, Dr. Agrawal, that Sarthak has taken the first right step in this pandemic to move forward, to conquer disability, convert it into ability, and show the world the super speciality of these differently abled. Thank you. Now let me call upon the National Olympic Association of India Chairman and Sarthak Board Member, Shri Kalra. Mr. Krishan Kalra, an engineer by training, has worked in corporate sector for over 38 years and has been Secretary General for FICCI for 7 years. He has been Board of Governors for IIM Calcutta and Ph.D. Chamber of Commerce Committee for nearly 20 years. Mr. Kalra, with his exceptional work, has helped in skill development, healthcare, environment, conservation, and empowerment of differently abled. Shri Kalra, one of our gurus, one of our mentors, one of our patrons. Over to you, sir. A few words from you on this entire journey of COVID of last 6 months.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. I'm really humbled by that great introduction that you have made. Possibly, I do not deserve even half of that. I'm grateful to Sarthak actually, and to their digital and outreach partners, the USIS, for giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts on the matter. Although the title in the program says keynote address, I don't think I'm qualified to deliver a keynote address, but I would all the same mention a few things that I feel are important. I think we are lucky that we have a brilliant panel today from all over the world. May I also add my personal word of thanks to Alfonso, Marcy, Adinel, Padam, Rahul, and of course, my own colleagues at Sarthak, Dr. Jitendra Agrawal, Siddhartha, Rastogi, and S.K. Gupta. We're delighted that these people from across the globe have joined, and they're the ones who really know a lot more. And I'm hoping, as you, Siddharth, said in the beginning, that we would, at the end of the 1.5-hour session, get some actionable points from them, because they're the ones who understand the situation, who understand the PwDs, who understand the problems that the PwDs are facing, and who really have a handle on what exactly is being done in the world and what is needs to be done. There are really just 2 points that I want to make. And these 2 points are, which I've gleaned from the documents that were sent to me by Bhavna. First is that the magnitude of the problem, the scale of the problem is far bigger than at least what I thought it was. Even the numbers that need to be served, the adversity that they are facing is far more. Now that's a disquieting thought, and that's an unnerving thought. But at the same time, the second point, I think, is somewhat encouraging. And the second point is that brightest minds around the world, I named some of them just now, a minute ago, and organizations like the United Nations and the ILO, and of course the national governments of many countries, have recognized the problem, and one is very, very hopeful that there would be solutions. There is no doubt about the fact that PwDs, persons with disabilities, are far more vulnerable to what the COVID is doing to the world. COVID itself is an unprecedented situation which the world hasn't seen, and most of us are really at a loss. No one knows. When it all started in the end of February, we were all, we were quite confident another month or 2 or 3 months, it will go by July, or it will go by August, it will end by September. It looks like more like that we'll have to live with it for quite some time, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Other day, I heard Bill Gates, the Microsoft chief, who said that if all nations work together brilliantly, we can probably put COVID past us by 2022. Now, when a comment like that comes from someone like Bill Gates, one has to take it seriously, because the guy understands what situation it is. There are even stories that he had forecast in one of the books or one of the presentations 10 years ago, that the world will face a pandemic like this over the next few years. Anyway, that's the point. The 3 things that made me really wake up to the situation, the magnitude of the situation. One is the ILO policy brief, June 2020, which was one of the papers that was sent to me by Sarthak when I was asked to participate in this webinar today. To me, it was quite a shock that PwD's numbers are 15% of the world's population. We were not aware of that. When in 2011, the government of India did a census, and they came out with the figure of 28 million, which is about at that time 2.8% of our total population, we thought even that was overwhelming. Of course, there were studies from WHO and our own studies which showed that possibly the numbers were closer to 7, 8%, 9%, and not 2.8%. And now this ILO policy brief mentioned that it could be as high as 15% of the world population. So that is a bit of a shock about the numbers involved, about the magnitude of the problem. The UN policy brief, May 2020, which was the second paper, which was sent to me, has more shocks. And there are 3 points that I want to flag at this moment from this policy brief. First one is that 1 in 5 women likely to experience disability in life. 20% of the women worldwide, UN feels that are likely to feel disability at some time or the other in life. The second part is that 1 in 10 children is a child with disability. 10% of all the children. And the third point here is that 46%, frightening number, 46% of all people over the age of 60 have some disability or that. Now these are all shockers. And the third one, another paper which was sent to me, which was part of the Sarthak bulletin, which was posted on this site of which we are all members of this group, the WhatsApp group, that only 34 lakh of the 1.34 crore PwDs in India in the employable age have a job. So that means 70% are unemployed. And as I've just mentioned, that the actual numbers are far more than what we are presuming. Our presumption is that 1.34 crore PwDs are there in India, 13.4 million. But I think in the employable age, out of the 28 million figure that we have from the 2011 census, but the actual figure now it seems is in all probability much more than that. So possibly the actual numbers who are employed from among the employable age may not even be 30%, it may be much lower than that. Now this is only to flag what is the size of the problem, what is the magnitude of the problem, what is the scale of the problem. And the second point that I said I'm going to make is that one feels happy, one feels encouraged, one feels confident that when organizations like the United Nations and the International Labour Organization have, their attention has been caught by the problem, by the adversities faced by the PwDs, by the greater vulnerability of the PwDs, then one is sure that some suggestions will emerge. I will share with you a couple of points which are from the summary of the reports of both these organizations. And of course, before that, I want to again repeat myself that the eminent panel that we have today, I'm very hopeful that these are people. So it's not only the UN and the ILO who are involved in it. There are several fine NGOs all over the world who are involved in facing this problem and finding solutions to the problem. So I'm very hopeful that our discussion today will bring out some concrete suggestions as to what we have to do. Now, before I close, I have already taken 7 minutes of the allotted 10 minutes to be. I want to just share with you briefly some of the important points made in the reports of ILO and United Nations. First, the ILO report, the recommendations that they have made in a nutshell, and I will flag only 2 of them. One, there are as many as 14 recommendations that have been made, but I'm not going to, because this is a public document available to everyone. If somebody hasn't seen it, please ask Bhavna and she'll forward it to you. But 2 of them, I think, are particularly comforting and encouraging. Social protection to provide immediate assistance to persons with disabilities through cash transfers, in kind, support, and adapted delivery mechanisms. This is one of the recommendations of the ILO report, which I think is very useful and very encouraging, because these are the things that really the PwD community needs and is looking forward to. The second recommendation, which I also found very encouraging, is to ensure that programs and initiatives for employment promotion include persons with disabilities and are gender responsive. I think with these two main takeaways from the ILO report, and I firmly believe that this report is being actioned by the network of ILO all over the world, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. There are also similarly 2 or 3 points from the executive summary of the UN report, the UN study report, which I mentioned about earlier, which primarily exposes the extent of the exclusion. Now, which is important to draw the attention of the world that there is exclusion in spite of what we might say and claim and all the good efforts which are being made all over the world and in India. I think there is exclusion. There is not the total inclusivity is still a chimera that we're thinking about. It highlights the work and disability inclusion. It highlights that the work and disability inclusion is absolutely imperative. And the couple of points that which caught my attention in this more than the other is that first, that the PwDs are more likely to live in poverty, experience higher rates of violence, neglect, and abuse, and are among the most marginalized in any crisis-affected community. And on the positive side, the UN report calls for placing them means the PwDs at the center of our response, participating as agents of planning and implementation. And the second one, to ensure accessibility of information, facilities, services, and programs in the COVID-19 response and recovery. And there's a third point also, which I think is very important, more important for a country like India, because we lack in that, establish accountability mechanism to ensure disability inclusion in the COVID-19 response. We are often guilty of not being accountable enough. With this, I'd like to close. Siddhartha has already mentioned that Sarthak has done fantastic work. I wish that they continue to do good work and do even much more. And I wish this webinar all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Kalra ji. This is very, very enlightening, and the seriousness of the problem. Approximately 1.15 billion people are expected to be differently abled. What a power, what a mechanism. If the practices which are taken by one can be implemented amongst the rest of them. So huge challenge, but there would be solutions. And as the biggest challenge which Shri Kalra ji highlighted, one amongst 5 women, which means 20% of the women are expected to face disability of some sort during their lifetime. Very, very stark data points. But thanks Shri Kalra for highlighting this. As the famous Carl Jung said, to ask the right question is already the half solution to a problem. So thanks so much for highlighting the seriousness of the problem and perhaps some solutions which are being undertaken and a lot more to be done. Now let's shift gears quickly and move to our panelists, the star panelists. Some say that stars are in heaven, some say stars are in sky. I say stars are there with me in my panel discussion. And with that, let me welcome Alfonso Lara Montera, the Chief Executive of European Social Network. A soft, kind-hearted gentleman who has brought together 140 member organizations across 36 countries, from public authorities in the field of social service. He has integrated the evidence-based social service, children's services, mental health services. He is a graduate from College of Europe, University College of London, the Solvay Business School. And Alfonso has also worked in consulting. So thanks so much, Alfonso, for taking time out, and a round of applause for Alfonso for taking Sarthak in this 140 member organization. Now Sarthak has become the 141st member organization in 36 countries to be part of this European social network. So thank you, Alfonso. Our second star for the panel discussion is Marcy Roth, some experienced lady with kind-hearted attitude, with huge wisdom, huge knowledge. Ms. Roth is a Harvard University Kennedy School Senior Executive Fellow, a Hilton Foundation Fellow. She holds a BS in Public Safety Administration from University of Maryland Gold Campus, and she is the Executive Director, Chief Executive Officer of World Institute of Disability. She has enabled and impacted millions of lives around the world, and she continues to pursue her journey, ensuring that every differently abled on this planet can stand up on his or her legs, can be treated equally, and ensure has dignity, which is to abled people. So thank you, Marcy, for joining us. Our next panelist is Adeni Toluwase. Sorry if I have pronounced it incorrect, but she is a wonderful, bright lady, a social worker who's the founder of Career Edu. She has ensured that she creates a platform where lives of differently abled can be trained and then they can make better career choices. She has undertaken several webinar series where influential LinkedIn professionals come and they talk about opportunities, possibilities, and perspectives. And it has transformed many lives of differently abled. Our next esteemed star is Yuma Massoud. She is the program officer of UNESCO, a gender and educational specialist. She is an MPhil in regional development, applied social sciences. At UNESCO, she is also gender and education in emergencies focal point for the sector and the office. She has enabled the cause of differently abled in UN, and she has made sure that her presence makes a difference in the cause of differently abled. Our next great speaker is from our neighborhood Nepal, Mr. Padam Meher, Senior Program Officer, Development Worker in Nepal since 2002. He started his career as disability movement leader and has influenced several lives. At UN Peace Builders, he played a significant role on mitigation of 10 years of moist insurgency in Nepal. He ensured that insurgency impacted lives are saved, rehabilitated. He has been managing ear and eye care program, including promoting community-based inclusive development for exploring opportunities for people with disability. So thank you, Padam, for taking time out. Welcome to this phenomenal session where we'll find possibilities, perspectives, and ideas with actionable points. Rahul Gupta, the head of financial sponsor coverage, a bright young boy who cannot see but didn't lose hope and has reached the highest level in corporate sector. Axis Bank, one of the biggest private sector banks in India, and he is the head of financial sponsors coverage. He has been in various roles. He has been a fast track specialized person, and he has led roles in wholesale banking in India and UK. Rahul has led way with dignity, both personally and professionally. He is one of the most admired and one of the most sought after mentors in Axis Bank. With this, let me start my question and answer session. And my first question straight goes to Alfonso. Alfonso, tell me, with this pandemic, how has the European Institute, has European social network has brought a difference in the lives of differently abled? What, in your experience, last 6 months, which have been challenging for everyone, including abled, including the most privileged, how has European social network impacted positively the lives of differently abled? So some few examples, if you can share, so that our esteemed rest of the panelists and our viewers can learn from it. Over to you, Alfonso.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Rastogi, and thank you very much, Mr. Aggarwal, for this invitation to participate in this meeting today with all of you, with our colleagues from, well, our international colleagues from India, but from many other countries as well. I think it's fantastic to be able to share outside our comfort zone, which is Europe, which is usually where we share, and be able to do so in other parts of the world too. For those of you who don't know who the European Social Network is, just very briefly, the European Social Network is an association or a network of public authorities in the field of social services. This is important. And when we look at how social services are organized in Europe, most of them are decentralized. They are decentralized to the local level, because this is usually where you know best the needs of the people you serve locally, and where you can make a difference, and where people bring their families, and where communities are. But of course, there are a number of elements when it comes to policy in the framework of disability within social services that affect, come from the international level. As we know, the UNCRPD, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, particularly when it comes to the principle of independent living. And then everything which cascades down from the European level, because the European Union has signed this. And of course, then it has to be transposed into the national legislation, and eventually cascades down to the local level. So you can imagine all the layers there, and it gets to the persons for whom we need to make a difference. This is why our main focus is in bridging the gap between the local and the European levels. So that is the idea. And how we do this with our members who are locally based, who are usually directors in public authorities, who have to work with politicians from different colors, different ideas, with those working at European level. And certainly this pandemic has had a significant impact on people with disabilities, as you say, differently abled. It has had an impact when it comes to social services. As you can imagine, there has been a number of, there's been an increase in psychological distress because of increased levels of isolation, because of some of the measures that have been put in place by national governments, particularly when it comes to physical distancing rules. Has been a number of issues around changes of routine, particularly for people with mental health problems, people with autism, people with dementia. The situation has been particularly challenging. Some of the things that we've seen across the countries has been the reduction in the number of services because of the measures implemented by national governments. Those working locally didn't have anything else to do. They had to actually close, for instance, day centers or active participation centers for people with disabilities and for older people. This, of course, has led, and we are aware, and we've been documenting this over these months. You asked me, what have we been doing? What we've been doing is trying to get information from our members, from what's the situation on the ground, to transfer this to the European level, and to see as to what resources, both from a policy and from a human and from a financial point of view, can be put in place to support them, to support those at local level. Because of the closing of the centers, this has meant that many families have had to take on additional care of persons who were supported by those social services because of not being with the usual professional support that they were receiving beforehand. Of course, because of having to drastically reduce the risk of the virus spreading between both people using services and the professionals themselves, this also meant that the provision of care at home was also affected, particularly when it comes to some of the personal assistants that support people with disabilities in their own homes. This is because there have been across most European countries a number of issues with access to personal protective equipment. Without this protective equipment, both for the professionals and for people who were using the services who need some support, it is very difficult to be able to fulfill the duties. Another challenge has been the access to information, particularly when it comes to measures to safety rules. You can imagine, because of the pandemic, the situation has been changing very often. So it was difficult to make sure that this information was reaching out to citizens, to professionals. So imagine to make sure that this was, of course, put in sign language, in easy to read materials for everyone to be able to know what was the situation. There have been a number of examples, a number of responses. Of course, there have been a number of humane elements being implemented. At the beginning of the pandemic, places were closed, but as we saw what was the impact, things have started to open gradually, particularly when it comes to allowing people with disabilities, their families, to be able to leave their homes in periods of lockdown and to be able to access the care they needed when that was necessary. You know that visits to care homes, so in those cases where people live in certain residential facilities, were stopped to protect residents and professionals. But of course, contact was encouraged online. And a number of measures have been put in place to ensure that that was the case. However, there have been still difficulties for some people, for instance, to understand why they couldn't be giving hugs from one day to the other. And we have had also a number of volunteering community services taking the lead in, for instance, going for a walk with those people and in cooperation with the police to ensure that everyone understood that they needed to be supported in that way. There have been increased number of social work interventions provided both over the phone to follow up on people who were using services in daycare centers, online, and also psychological support provided for people with disabilities and their families through either specific email addresses and through helplines. I would say that the communities have flourished. We've seen amazing examples of volunteers working together to support people with disabilities, those who couldn't leave their homes, to purchase food for them, to support them with basic necessities. And also everything around digitization, everything that has to do with, for instance, using the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to test new forms of social services such as group therapies online. So all in all, a number of significant challenges, but also a number of opportunities looking into the future and a number of lessons learned that we need to continue developing as we go along.
Thank you, Alfonso. This is very, very powerful. So 3 things Alfonso told us. First is, and hear this word carefully, global. So what Alfonso told us, think global, act local. So that's what European team is doing. So that's one. Second is, have more number of volunteers to assist. So ensure that there are enough team of volunteers to assist the differently abled, and there are more people who are willing to give. So that's number 2. And number 3 is digitization, which is fantastic. My straight question to Marcy, and Marcy is like an epitome of success. So Marcy, I would not beat around the bush, and I would straight go to the point is, you have such a great career and you have achieved so much in your life. Tell us three things how you remain resilient, because must be ups and downs. There must be things which weren't right for you. How did you manage to do it? Three specific things, because our audience wants to learn from you. Over to you, Marcy.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you for putting together this very important discussion. It is these kinds of information sharing sessions that bring us all together, eliminate the barriers between us, eliminate the boundaries between countries. And so I would say, first and foremost, what has been most significant for me has been building alliances with, I am looking at a group of people who I have the pleasure of being with. It's now 6 o'clock in the morning for me. I have the pleasure of being with all of you. I see this sort of global collaboration as really one of the things that makes me strongest, makes me feel most hopeful. It's been a particularly different and difficult and sad time, I think, for all of us. And the thing that has always been my life energy is working in collaboration with other disability leaders and our allies. And when I am in a position to lead and support the kind of change that really does shift the power balance, that really enables people with disability to not only be at the table when discussions around our lives are happening, but in fact to be at the head of the table, to be able to lead those discussions. You know, we have a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us. And what that has meant is we don't want folks planning for us. We don't want folks making decisions for us. We want to be at the table, in the discussions, at the head of the table when it's appropriate. And so the other thing that has kept me able to continue to focus on the priority, which is the lives and opportunities of over 1 billion people with disabilities globally, has been the daily interactions with other disability leaders and allies who share those frustrations, share that commitment, build change together. And it is, and I will give you an example. I am part of a collaborative called the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies. And we have been meeting every single day since February 28th, 7 days a week, holidays. We meet every day for 1 hour at 6 p.m. US Eastern Time. And we come together to talk about the issues that people with disabilities are dealing with, specifically around COVID, but also we talk about other concurrent disasters, and we talk about good practices, promising practices. We solve problems together. we are a group of probably several hundred people. Not everybody comes every day, but that has been, during this crisis, the thing that has kept me going the most. Every single day at 6 p.m., I gather with a group of powerful, committed people working together to make a horrific situation just a little bit less horrific.
So this is absolutely brilliant, Marcy. What you told us is that build alliances and collaborate. Second, very important thing which you said is get a voice, not only enable, but ensure that you decide. You and your voice matters. So what Marcy is actually saying, that every differently able, if you have a thought, if you have an opinion, if you have a view, express it. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Express it. Go to Twitter, go to Facebook, go to any social media. That's a powerful tool. Express it. Very, very powerful. Marcy, thank you so much for highlighting this. And the last thing which Marcy said, which is incredible: get power from the community. Find like-minded people and interact with them every day. Make it a habit, make it a practice, make it a mantra, and you will achieve what you want to. Fantastic. Marcy, this is phenomenal. Thank you for being part of this. Now next, our next panelist, and she's an epitome of entrepreneur. She has been a great social entrepreneur, Adanei, and I want to ask her very simply. We are seeing all across the world, the jobs are getting reduced. A, because of digitization, B, because of lower business, C, because of the different dynamic environment. How did you get your focus on entrepreneurship? And what should these budding entrepreneurs, differently abled entrepreneurs, should be doing? Three things, if you can tell us from your journey, it will help all of us. It will help maybe a billion. Adanei, over to you, please. Adanei, can you hear me?
Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Team Sarthak and everyone on the panelist. Here in Nigeria, things have actually been very strict since COVID happened. Quite a number of persons lost their job, and when people were being told to work remotely from home, most companies or industries did not consider people with disabilities, because a lot of factors are in place for persons with disability to work remotely from home. We talk about sitting space, sitting hours, and quite a number of factors. And one of the things we were able to do is actually communicate and have discussions with individuals that are within our circle, in our society, people who were told to work from home, people who lost their jobs, people who we feel okay could not make end meet anymore. One of the things we did was include skills that were necessary. People who never had opportunity to learn skills that they can do with their hands, we actively engage them. So because you were stopped from working in the corporate sector right now, and you are not given, the truth is quite a number of them were not given the opportunity to even work from home. Quite a number of them were just told to go, we'll come, we'll get back to you later. So we're able to engage these individuals, learn skills that at least can put food for yourself and your family on the table. Also, we discovered that for those who are whose primary use is sign language in the entrepreneurial world, for you to even communicate to other people you are trying to market your goods, whatever, to, we discovered that quite a number, we have just a very small number of persons that could actually use the sign language. So what we did actively was create a circle where we brought people who are interested in actually getting the market of these individuals, and we brought a sign language teacher to teach for this period, actually, at least basic communication skills to pass information. And, you know, I'm happy to say that we have quite a number of persons who could not even use sign languages before, now communicate effectively their market. And this has helped a whole lot of individuals put food on their table. Also, the last aspect I want to talk about is the part where we're actually trying to digitalize. Quite a number of persons actually in this part of the world in Nigeria are still struggling with the digital aspect. People do not understand the fact that you can actually market yourself online. People do not understand the fact that, okay, you can actually put your product online for people to see. And one of the things we, like you said, exactly, is think global but act local. And, you know, we tell them, no matter what your product is, no matter what services you can offer, since you've been stopped maybe from working in the corporate sector, you can actually put these services online. And we know we open the eyes of people to websites that allow for copywriting, website that allows for translators, works that can be just, they don't necessarily need a copy at table. Also, I would say that the platform at which I represent also not only cater for people in the entrepreneurship sector, we also cater for children with disabilities. And what we notice is that here in Nigeria, and I think Africa generally, in the past 6 to 7 months, children have not had access to schooling. They have not been going anywhere. They've just been at home doing nothing. One of the things we were able to do is actively engage the parent. Okay, how do we make sure that these children at least learn? And, you know, we're able to get volunteers around in different local communities, go to teach these children at specific hours of the week, so that at least when they get back to school also, they are not totally empty. They still remember things and they can actually catch up. Because the goal is not just to have them go to school. These are children with disabilities. We already know that the educational sector, even mainstream, is trying to include a whole lot. So we try to make them learn and get ready to know what the actual world looks like. Here in Nigeria, children with disabilities are quite a number of the population, but they had the least attended to. So one thing we do actually is also to pay attention to them. Are they really catching up with school, or are they just marking days? Because we know, between me, you, and everyone in the world, we know these children are the individuals that grow up and become adults in various spheres of control. They're the adults that become leaders. They're the adults that become entrepreneurs, master. So we try as much as possible to like coach them, go to various local communities, get volunteers, attach them as mentors and mentees platform, and we try as much as possible to make them see that, okay, you can learn, even though not virtually. I would say we are still struggling and trying our best to make sure that the virtual system gets very, very accessible in this part of the world. But while we are still working on that, we are actively working on a one-on-one basis, even locally and rurally.
So this is phenomenal idea. What Adanai just said, the last part of it. If you don't have cash, if you don't have money, don't worry. Start thinking you as a brand. The differently abled person has to think himself or herself as a brand. Start marketing it digitally. That's what Adanai taught us. And then use that brand to start the barter system. You will never be impoverished. You will never die of hunger. You will never have a situation of disadvantage. So extremely powerful, Adanai. And one important thing which she mentioned, that start looking at these differently abled as a market as well. 1 billion people. And start figuring out what possibilities can emerge from this large group of people. Be the brand, create your own virtual brand, and then think big. As Niccolo Machiavelli said, if you are not thinking big, then you're not going to exist anywhere. Your goal should be so big that it should stir your soul. And that's what you should start focusing on. Start thinking really big. Thank you, Adanai. This is wonderful. Before I move to our next panelist, if you have questions, we have answers. The stars have come down. Ask your questions, pointed questions, and we will answer. So the next one is to our phenomenal, our great Yuma Massoud. She represents UNESCO, and UNESCO has seen more pandemics, more eventualities, more calamities, more catastrophes, and she has gone through all of it. Yuma, my question is very, very simple. What would you advise differently abled in this age of digitization, in this age of pandemic, in the age of social distancing? What should they be doing to be as successful as you, as successful as anyone else? Yuma, your expertise, your wisdom. Yuma, your voice is little feeble.
Thanks a lot, Siddhartha. Thanks a lot, Jitendra Aggarwal. The entire Sarthak Trust Committee and all the panelists. It's a big and a high privilege for us to be part of this very auspicious, very dynamic audience and panelists, as well as it's also a good learning for us. The PowerPoint which I prepared, I'm not going to run through the entire thing, but just allow me to put it up. Slide, and I'll bring attention to the slide which for which you have raised the question. So I'll try to analyze that for all of us together and hope that would be useful. So please allow me to screen the...
Ms. Massoud.
Can you see my slide?
Not as yet, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll go to, just one moment.
Do a screen share.
Yeah, I'll just do the screen share. So my screen share is this.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, okay. So basically, I had just the title of this meeting, and that was on the global COVID-19 situation and its impact on the persons and children with disabilities. If I want to, I don't want to run through this. We all know about the facts. We also know the new norms. What people call, these days is like, we used to have a time when we used to be talking about WMD as weapons of mass destructions, but now it is more to do with WASH. It is more to do with mass. It's more to do with distancing. The whole, acronyms are changing, and COVID-19 is giving us a lot of reality check. So in the context of, the challenges and the new norms, if we look at these three challenges, it's again a new challenge for the persons with disabilities. I do not need to be taking you on deeper into that because all of us know how they are impacted. This picture is good to tell that how accessibility is taken care of, and how conscious and how the infrastructural limitations are impacting, in terms of the travel, in terms of when we are opening up. We say that almost 48 countries have now opened up. And even in India, now class 9 to 12, students have been encouraged that if they could go back to school, and we need to resume, and get back the economy and things like that. But where are the issues of persons with disabilities? It says all. We know about issues of health and sanitations. I do not need to go into that. We also know, since you spoke about education, so one which is something which is very important for us in the context of UNESCO is that numbers matter, and we see that no reliable figures yet on students with disabilities impacted are available. we are doing a socio-economic survey, as part of the UN system, and want to present this report to the Niti Aayog. And I just got the draft, and it was so shocking that this draft and the data which this organization has collected, it shows that there is no impact for persons with disabilities. They got the rations, they got the health facilities, there was no violence against them, there was all kind of support provided, there was no disruption in their education. And so I just, between one of the speakers who was speaking, I had to go up, I called the person, I said, you have shocked me, and what is the reason, I'm like really shocked. And I said, we are over here deliberating on the issues, and you are saying that the state government had this whole thing of the BPL, scheme, and therefore persons with disabilities were covered, and therefore there's no impact on their situation. So you know how things happen. So if people like you, me, and the members who are present in this discussion, if we do not interfere, it could be a major problem. Now, exclusion is something which we have been saying loud and clear as UNESCO, UNICEF, and other UN agencies, that, distance learning solutions lack support, in terms of internet, in terms of the software, in terms of learning material for persons with disabilities. And there are also issues of social emotional learning, SEL, there are issues of violence, and there's a major digital divide which is impacting, because we are aware that there is home-based education program, and then what is the preparation, what is the support for persons with disabilities. And very many reports have come out, by if we are aware that the Javed Abidi Foundation and NCPEDP have also brought out a report and given it. So we know that there are a lot of issues. Since this the previous speaker was talking about the economic impacts, the skill impacts, and therefore they were already unemployed and there was lack of employment. But now with this whole a movement, this whole situation, if we look at the homelessness, there's a whole issue of contractual laborers, the migrant workers and the beggars. We know that it has impacted persons with challenges a lot. There has been disruptions to skills and training programs, and are likely to have far-reaching effects on youth with disabilities who face a multitude of barriers or to entering the workforce. So I think one or two good examples which were shared in this forum would be useful, but the fact remains that it's a big challenge. And when we look at, of course, as I mentioned about the support services, violence, all this we know are there and exist, but the big programs, Ayushman Bharat, the doorstep delivery, the PDS schemes, I mean, in terms of schemes and plans and programs, everything is there. But in terms of delivery, in terms of implementation, I think there are a lot of issues, and we need to be really, kind of working as a team. I mean, what I always say, that there is no convergence, there is no, the groups don't work together, and it's not like one voice. And I think we need to be one voice, and that is how we can support as one voice. The issues of regional language, and I mean, we know many which are already in my PowerPoint, which could be shared with all, but I'll just go through what have been our recent responses. We brought out a few posters which are on our website. These were also endorsed by the Government of India, MHRD. And then we also did a mapping of school closures and have produced guidelines for school reprogramming, which are very inclusive and are also covering persons with disabilities. There's a document which we'll be launching in October. It's done by me and with support of one intern, Minding Our Minds. So it will also be launched soon. And then we have also produced traditional learning to digital learning and digital educational resources and all, which are available We have listed those out. Then we are also providing educational authorities with cooperation in education planning and administration. There have been, we are looking at disaggregated data, we are looking at specific measures, very much towards education and the most vulnerable through our Category 1 Institute IIEP. And we are looking at how coordination, which we say is missing and there's a gap, and cross-sectoral planning, which is important to enhance equity, inclusion, and gender equality. If you allow me, then I would like to share one film here, which is just for not even 1 minute, if it's permissible.
Go ahead, Ms. Massoud, please. It'll be a pleasure. No, we can still see the presentation page only.
So this was what I wanted to share briefly, and I hope.
No, thank you. This is very, very helpful. So what you actually converted weapons of mass destruction into wash, masks, and distancing. Very, very interesting concept. And clearly there are policies, there are framework, there's infrastructure, but it's not being implemented properly. So the advice Ms. Massoud gives to everyone is, you have all the right, because this is free from the government. Ask. Mark PMO, mark the chief minister, mark the cabinet secretary, mark the secretaries, but ask for your right. It's your right. Do not hesitate. Social media is a powerful mechanism used to exercise your right. Thank you, Ms. Massoud, for this. My next question is to Mr. Meher, Padam Meher, and he has been an expert in the social space. He has been working with the ears and eyes specialized people. So Padam, your journey, what have you learned, and what is the advice you will give our socially inclined Divyangjan, differently abled superhumans? How should they cope up with this pandemic? 2 or 3 brilliant ideas through your journey. Padam, over to you. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all the teams, and thank you all the colleagues here. Yes, it's very interesting discussion about inclusion of the persons with disabilities in COVID response. Generally, whenever it's COVID, but in any emergency situation, persons with disabilities are most vulnerable because of their limitation of mobility and because of other social discrimination factors and practices. As earlier also we mentioned that around more than 15% of the world populations living with disabilities, and it's also mentions that around 80% of them are living in the poor and disadvantaged communities like us. Whenever we see the COVID and its impact to the persons with disabilities, the risk level is more than double to the persons with disabilities. And it's because the risk is because of the less hygiene and sanitation practices among them. They have a limited access to the information, and there is social, there is so many discriminations in response practices, including the social security services and others. That's what always we are talking about. Earlier also our colleagues already talk about engagement and enabling environments can reduce the impact of the COVID to the persons with disabilities. In such a way, based on our experience and based on our discussion with many people, like the first things is during this, the COVID is a very new pandemics for all of us. And in the earlier days, we did some kind of surveys, and after 1 month of lockdowns in our context, particularly in Nepal, more than 40%, around 40% persons with disabilities were not known about what is COVID and why the lockdown is, because unaccessible communication, let's say unaccessible, particularly communication. It's because earlier there was no sign language practices, and there was no braille productions about it. Even now it's very limited. That's what the first things about in emergency response, to have the to ensure the accessibility of the persons with disability in a various aspects. The first is about the accessible in the infrastructures. I mean, if we are providing any relief and any kind of things, that the place should be accessible where all kind of persons with disability can reach. And beside that, accessible information should be aware and should be provided to the persons with disabilities, and considering the persons with hearing impairment, persons with blindness, even the autism, and even the learning disabilities, how the people can get this information very well. This is very, very important in all response in emergencies. And beside that, always then after accessibility in terms of the attitude and behavior of the respondent is also very important questions always raised. I mean, if there is any discriminated practices, or if the behaviors is rude toward the persons with disability, that really hinder the persons with disability to reach on that services whatever we have. And beside that, another point is very important is to consult with the persons with disabilities, or to consult with the organization of the persons with disabilities, or the representatives. Actually, it's because now it's a bit very easy compared to the past many years. It's because now the representative of the persons with disabilities is always available in many parts, and they know about the need of individuals. It's because responding to the persons with disability is not under the holistic approach, not under the blanket approach. It's because it's individualized approach. For example, you know, just few times ago, I had doing some things, and on that times I met one lady who is spinal cord injuries, and she was really suffering from the hygiene kits and sanitary bag. And on the times that really touched me, what she say actually is, even I can live without having food for, let's say, for several days, but I cannot live without having a sanitary pad or the urine bag, even a single couple of the hours. That is very important, that the very specific needs of the persons with disabilities on that scenario. And about the in the education is a very important part. And though now, as earlier also we were discussing, if there is some challenges arises, then the people have a very excellent minds that they cope up with the new opportunities, definitely. And that's what now we are here from the people from the globes, like we are talking about. And same things is happening in the education as well, but it's still particularly the persons with hearing impairment, persons with blindness, and the person having autism, they are really lacking behind, because there is so many technologies is developed, but not focusing to those persons. And that's what the technologies that we are information technology that we are developing have to be address the need of the people who are really need, like how we can continue the education of the persons who have a learning disability or intellectual disability or the autism. Beside that, in the health also, we realize that many people have a less access to their regular health services. So for example, in this pandemic, COVID pandemic, the factors for the hemophilias have been very much limited in the markets, and it's very expensive as well. And sometimes it's very critical for them. That's what these kind of things also to be included when we talk about the inclusive humanitarian response or inclusive emergency response. And beside that, in our context, I think in the global as well, there is no very specific data, disaggregated data of the persons with disabilities, who and how they are affected. That's what this is also very important. Like we have to mobilize the persons, the organization of the persons with disabilities, and the respondent on collection of the persons with disability, how they are really affected.
So thanks, Padam. So what Padam has told us that information is the key, and how do you get information? Use Google, use mechanism to learn, because without information, the disability will aggravate, the propensity of disability will increase. So use technology to learn more, to get information better. So thanks Padam for this valuable insight. Our last panelist, one of the role models in the corporate sector, Rahul Gupta. Rahul, can you tell us in your journey, because you have reached the heights of success which a lot of people still dream in the corporate sector, and despite of you being specially abled, you have reached there. So how did you manage to do it? And three things which you did right, which you can tell all the Divyang brethren and sisters.
Thank you so much, Siddhartha. It's always a humbling experience to be there, and I've now, I've been fortunate now to see Sarthak's journey for over 9 years, and every time I'm I'm on a panel or I'm a part of any activity, I think it's more humbling, and even more as I see such an eminent panel here. Siddhartha, we've been talking about, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that perhaps I'm one of the Divyangs here amongst the larger panelists. The way I have always looked at disability, I've always been convinced of a fact that disability is not by virtue of a medical situation. Disability is by virtue of a mental attitude. What I mean, Swami Vivekananda said it in a very, very simple way. A person without eyesight is not blind, but a person without vision is. Now, not to say that the other stakeholders around you are not important. Of course, they do play an immense role in making who we are. But the key of the thing lies in your confidence in an ability to take new challenges and believe that, yes, if there are obstacles, I am going to convert them into an opportunity. I'll say I've been extremely fortunate through my life, starting with great parents, and then a lovely wife, and great leaders professionally, who of course gave me an opportunity to step in and take up new roles, bigger opportunities. But of course, it left me with an equal responsibility on my shoulder to deliver, and that's where the game starts to change. People are willing to put confidence in you, and as you start delivering, the things move on. I never forget, the 14 years back on campus, when I was being interviewed by multiple organizations, and we had some of the top investment banks coming and hiring. Honestly, I had an opportunity to look at the hypocrisy of the world, while some of the where some of the organizations talks about inclusiveness. Despite crossing 8 or 9 technical interviews, having endorsements from the directors and the deans, I was put down. And then came an organization which asked a simple question: what will it take you to be a part of a growth story? And my response was technology and your faith. And I think there's never been a looking back. 14 years in this organization, had a fantastic journey. Every time leaders were willing to come and support West, leave me with a new task. But that again left me with an opportunity, responsibility to deliver and take it a notch higher. I agree, and I hear that there is some of the things which I think are extremely important within the Divyang community is one, of course, have faith in yourself, have belief in your ability. I've been saying it time and again. The world will not change for you. First, you change for the world. As you go and tell the world, hey, I'm empowered, I can do it, there is hardly a reason that the world will not believe in you. Second, we got to lever technology, and I completely believe, I completely hear Padam and agree. It also leaves me with the point that, there is a need for all of us to come together and share our best practices. Since I'm on this webinar, as soon as COVID came and stuck, we all, of course, got into a lockdown situation. Of course, organizations mobilized things pretty quickly. But what I had was a tablet, and of course, the work had to go on. And it was extremely difficult for me to read through the pad. But what I did, and maybe I like to showcase, something as simple. Just got, I don't know if people can see that, but just got a pad. My wife had a simple idea: use a whitener, write it, make it bold. That's it. So, so we can, of course, complain, crib, but the power lies in, can I find a solution? I believe while the COVID has left us with multiple challenges, again, there's been a clear recognition that tasks which now perhaps Divyangs are now at an equal footing. If I talk about people with locomotive disabilities, the way the work from home has now shaped up, I completely believe if we take it right in a right way to the corporates, it will open up a lot of opportunities for them. There, as we speak, there is enough evidence now, and with Sarthak having engaged and done some fantastic work, there's enough evidence to suggest how Divyangs actually turn out to be more productive, and why not? I think it is in our hand, and we completely recognize the need that it is our responsibility as we make a change, where the world will follow. Again, I believe that now there comes also a need to step up the whole expectation. I think we all need to together come and talk about how Divyangs are going to take up leadership positions, and how this should happen is not by virtue of any reservations or by quotas. This clearly has to be a capability game. People really need to come together and ask, why not a Divyang for a role? I mean, is it just because it's a Divyang and the person can't take a role? No, absolutely not. If there's something that goes wrong on a technical basis, yes, put that aside. I had an opportunity to be in the West. I was in London for 5 years. I think one of the things that I like about West is clearly it's meritocracy. We in India, of course, I think we've got multiple other battles to fight. We are fighting those battles, but we have to up this game. There's a lot going on in the infrastructure space. Yes, we need to come talk at various governmental levels, district levels, corporate levels. We all are going to be voices where we'll say, yes, we need a change. And I'm sure as we aspire to achieve that, each one of us will open doors together to not just ask for employment, but actually ask for leadership positions. As I said in one of the webinars last time, why can't a country like India at one day have a prime minister who's a Divyang? Why out of the Fortune 500, why can't we have a society? If one out of five, if I take that as a number, if 20% of the world is going to be Divyangs, or are Divyangs in some medical form, can we not even have 10% of the top executives globally as Divyangs? I think these are, of course, questions that need answers. More and more deliberations need to be required. But again, I think that the community also needs to step up, and that's where we need to create this platform. And I think we need more and more of these discussions to make it meaningful.
Thanks, Rahul. So Rahul told us three very simple things again. One is your attitude determines your ability or your disability. So clearly have a great positive attitude. Second, don't think that you are less. You are not less as compared to anyone. Use technology as an enabler. And the third and the most important thing, which Rahul actually said, is hope and faith. Because hope gives faith, and faith delivers miracles. So have faith and miracles will happen. With this, thank you so much. Let me shoot straight to the questions which I would like to get answers from our panelists. My first question straight to is Marcy. And Marcy, the audience wants to know that there can be a massive second wave of pandemic which can hit in months to come, in quarters to come. What can be the impact of that wave on differently abled, and how to be resilient from there?
There apparently is a second wave coming, although in most parts of the world, I don't think we're going to be able to tell the second wave from the first wave, because we seem to be in a steady incline. I know here in the US, we have just passed 200,000 deaths. Among those, we've had 11 people with disabilities who've died every hour for the last several months. 11 people with disabilities dying every hour. And so clearly here and in many other parts of the world, what we're doing is failing terribly. And people with disabilities are disproportionately impacted and losing our lives. What we need to do, we need to continue to work together to identify good and promising practices, and then relentlessly push to ensure that children with disabilities are going to school along with their age peers, whether that's remote learning or whether that's in classroom learning, that we need to make sure that people with disabilities are able to work along with the rest of the workforce, again, utilizing remote resources as a tool for leveling the playing field. We need to make sure that we're not rationing care, that people with disabilities have access to the same care as everyone else. And in many places that has meant that the use of telemedicine, telehealth, my granddaughter, who will be 2 tomorrow, has a very significant speech delay because of some oral architecture problems. And she is getting speech therapy 5 days a week remotely. Zoom has made it possible for her to get speech therapy without putting her in jeopardy. There are many, many ways in which we cannot just weather these tragic times, but in fact, we can use the tools that are so effective in reaching people with disabilities and providing us with equally effective access. Those tools can be used for everyone. We just need to make sure that people have equal access, that our sign language interpreters, captioners, that our online materials are accessible, and really use these days and the potential surge or continue as an opportunity to improve on all of the ways that we have a saying, We need to disrupt exclusion and accelerate radical inclusion. These are the days to disrupt exclusion and accelerate radical inclusion.
Wow, wonderful. So disrupt exclusion and accelerate radical inclusion. So wonderful, Marcy. This is wonderful. My last question to Rahul Gupta, Padam, and Adnei, as well as Alfonso. If you guys can keep it brief, specific, it will be helpful. We are running out of time. So the question is, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen increase in the racial discrimination, disparaging remarks, mockery directed towards the persons with disability. How do you think organizations are dealing with it, the international organization, and how do you think the person should be dealing with it? So Alfonso, if you can give your perspective very briefly, and then we can move to the other panelists, Adnei, as well as Rahul, as well as Padam. Alfonso, over to you.
Yes, I think we've seen an increase in discrimination against people with disabilities, against older people as well over the past months. And I think what is very important is to make sure that those organizations that are working, particularly from our point of view, those who are working in social services, in care services with them, it is very important to make sure that they are educating society in a way that they are providing the right type of information, that communities, local communities are informed about the needs of let's say, these people. Actually, as an example, something very, very practical, there are some examples in which local services have worked with the communities to support, for example, with volunteers, that people who were at home, people with disabilities who were at home, they could be supported to be taken, for example, for a walk. Because they were in their own homes, they couldn't attend the care centers, which meant that they were socially isolated. But actually working with the police in times of lockdown, because people were not allowed actually to go out, then you could actually have an example of support to make sure that there was no discrimination, that there were no harassment directed at them, that everyone within the community understood that they had to be supported to go out because it was needed as part of the support they need. So I think there is a lot of work to be done on awareness raising and making sure that communities are aware of the needs of different peoples within their own environments, and public authorities have a key role to play to make sure that this happens.
Thank you. So this is good. Can I have Adnei? Can you give your response quickly? How to ensure that the discrimination, disparaging remarks can be curtailed? Your thoughts?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Adnei.
Okay, like I would say, advocacy should be raised, awareness should be raised to individuals in the society. Quite a number of persons need to actually be informed properly. Half information is wrong information. Quite a number of persons actually need to be carried along about people with disabilities. Information should go through the right source and necessary quarters. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on, please.
Okay. Information should go out through the right source and necessary quarters. Also, people with disability should be their own mouthpiece. They should consciously try to educate everyone around them. So in our environment here, we have people with disabilities actually in the forefront of raising awareness so that the society can see that these persons are actively involved in changing the narrations. Enough of people who are in the spheres of leading people with disabilities coming out to speak on their behalf. We actually need more persons with disability coming out to change the narration themselves So it's not enough to just be involved in policies, not enough in just be involved in passing of circulars. These individuals also have to come out to the society to change what people see as true and make them informed of the right information, so that it won't be, oh, we had this, it will be, this is the right thing and this is the right way to behave. Also, I believe that necessary bodies and organizations should actively join in raising awareness, advocacy. The truth is, people misbehave and discriminate persons with disabilities because they don't have the right information. People with disabilities are actually just perceived. They have some perceived information. So once the information is put right and necessary laws are put in place to actually support people with disabilities as normal citizens also in individual countries, quite a lot of discrimination will be stopped.
So thank you. So have your voice, speak up, speak in a community, speak in a group, speak in a society, speak in a collaborative manner. Wonderful. So Rahul, can you share your crisp thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Siddhartha. I think glad this question came. So, and a quick response to that, once the same question was asked by a guy to the manager, that what do? I get so distracted with all the negativity. How do I absorb it? And the manager said, he asked him to fill a glass with water to the top. And he said, the task for you is walk from point A to point B and ensure not even a single drop falls. Of course, the manager said it and the boy did it. At the end, the manager said, did you do it? He said, yes. And manager said, did you realize that there was so much noise around you and people were talking on negative stuff? He said, no, I was busy doing my work. And that's precisely the answer. If we are focused, if we are up to what we are, the world is going to say. I think our actions are going to speak. As very famously said, people are going to throw lemons at you. It depends on you if you can catch them, squeeze the lemonade out of it and sell it in the market. So don't worry about these lemons being thrown. We will make the world know we exist, we make a difference, but we'll do it with our job.
Great. So phenomenal response. So cut the noise, focus and deliver. Wow. Padam, over to you.
Yes, thank you again. I'm fully agree with the colleagues that they mentions everything. It's very interesting. Besides that, I would like to add two more things. The first thing is to reduction of how we define the discrimination. For example, I am a person with wheelchair user and I cannot reach to the somewhere there is a COVID response activity or emergency response activity is being held. For example, they are distribution relief, but I cannot reach on that place. This is also discriminations that also should be considered. And beside the second points would be, there should be one multidisciplinary complaint handling mechanism with involvement of a representative of the persons with disabilities, police, government, stakeholders, and beside that the human rights defenders as well on that committee. And that should not be in the national level, in sub-national level, in district level, and in the lower level as well. And that could really handle the main problems of the persons with disabilities facing as a discrimination in the case of emergencies.
Thank you. So essentially the policy mechanism from top to bottom at the lowest level, at the local level. Thank you, Padam. This is helpful. So with this, we wind up our session. Thank you, esteemed guests. Thank you for enlightening our Divyangjan. Thank you for enlightening the differently abled superhuman. Thank you for energizing everyone. Your words matter, your thoughts matter, your actions matter. As the famous British writer said, C.S. Lewis, hardships often prepare ordinary people. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary journey. When are you gonna start your extraordinary journey, your extraordinary destiny, your extraordinary goal? The question lies in front of all differently abled superhumans. Best wishes to all of you, and thank you for being such great panelists, for being such great audience, for coming here, sparing your time, enlightening us, motivating us, inspiring us with your life, with your thoughts, with your ideas. Now I would request Mr. S.K. Gupta, who is an esteemed member of Sarthak Advisory Board, to close this panel with his concluding remarks. Thank you and Jai Hind to everyone.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think you have summed up each speaker's views very nicely, and we have a very diverse panel today, not only geographically, but also in terms of their experience. Almost all the continents are represented today on the panel. The topic of discussion was very relevant. Everyone, whether able or disabled, is actually suffering from COVID. No one exactly knows how to handle, and the problem is more acute for those who have some sort of disability. The numbers are huge, 15% of the world population, which is 1 billion plus. And as we came to know through the panel discussion today, from the views of each one, that in every continent they have different types of problems. It's difficult to sometimes reach those people because of lockdowns. They are not able to communicate their requirements because of inaccessibility. The problems, even without COVID, were huge and humongous for the PwDs, but the COVID has made them manifold in certain areas, especially so in the places where the uh, economy is not so good, the resources are not available. However, everyone is engaged in making a difference to the lives of people at large, and especially for the people who have some disability. The experiences shared by all of you in terms of building alliances and raising voice and uh, creating your own brand, learning sign language, having technological solutions, being able to deliver things, learn and deliver things online. In fact, work from home is a concept which suits more to the people with disability because they can work from the comfort of their homes, provided they are technically qualified and technically trained to do that job. So these are challenges which we gather from the discussions today, but there is a lot of hope in the sense that the problems are similar, the solutions are also similar. The only thing that we need in today's time is to collaborate, to cooperate, to coordinate, and move forward as one unit. And as Mr. Rahul said, a person without eyesight is not blind, a person without vision is blind. So I see each one of you as a visionary in his own field, making a wide impact on the wider population with a lot of efforts that are going on. We hope that this collaboration, cooperation, coordination, learning, going together, going forward continues, and we make things, we make the world a better place in the future. So with these words, I want to thank all of you and hope that everyone has got benefited in some way or the other, and people who have participated in this webinar also got some insight into the world that we generally try to ignore or are not aware of. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.